I thought my marriage was perfect. 20 years together, a successful company, and a retirement plan to travel the world with the woman I loved. But one night changed everything. In hotel room 917, I discovered a truth so devastating, it made me realize my entire life had been built on lies. What I heard through that door wasn't just betrayal. It was a carefully planned nightmare that would either end with my signature on some papers or my death. I used to think I had it all figured out. I had spent the last 20 years building my company from the ground up, turning it into a multi-million-dollar business. I worked tirelessly, made sacrifices, and played the long game. And now, finally, I was at the finish line. I was about to sell the company and retire early. The dream was simple: travel the world with my wife, Christina. After years of grinding, I could finally enjoy the fruits of my labor. Christina and I had been together for over 20 years. We met young, fell hard, and built a life together. She was beautiful, smart, and had a way of making people feel at ease. She ran a charity organization, something she had been passionate about for as long as I could remember. With our son, Jake, off at college now, I thought this was our time to reconnect. Just the two of us like it used to be. But something felt off. I ignored it at first. Maybe it was just the stress of the transition. Selling a company wasn't easy. There were lawyers, contracts, and endless meetings. But it wasn't just that. Christina had changed. She was distant, cold even. I told myself it was just in my head, that I was overanalyzing things. But the way she avoided eye contact, the way she seemed indifferent to my presence, it wasn't nothing. Then, the first crack appeared. A major client, one I had been working with for years, suddenly pulled out of a huge deal. No warning, no explanation. Just like that, millions of dollars were off the table. It was a gut punch, but I could handle it. Business was unpredictable. Then my CFO called. "Adam, we have a problem." That's never a good way to start a conversation. "What kind of problem?" I asked, already feeling my stomach tighten. "There are some discrepancies in the accounts. Money's missing. We're talking hundreds of thousands." I felt a cold sweat on my neck. "Missing? What do you mean missing?" "We're still looking into it. But it's not an error. The money was moved." I clenched my jaw. "By who?" Silence. "We don't know yet." I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. "Find out." I hung up, staring blankly at my desk. The day had gone from bad to worse in a matter of hours. By the time I got home, exhaustion weighed on me like a ton of bricks. I needed a drink. I needed my wife. I needed to vent, to talk, to hear her say it was going to be okay. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, legs curled under her. She looked up as I walked in, but didn't smile. "Hey," I said, dropping my briefcase by the door. "Hey." Her voice was flat. I sat down across from her, rubbing my face. "Rough day." She didn't ask why. Didn't even look curious. I sighed. "One of our biggest clients walked away from a deal today." "Just like that, gone?" She nodded absently, still looking at her phone. "And to make things worse, there's money missing from the company. A lot of it. We're trying to figure out where it went." I waited for her to say something else, to ask me what happened, to offer words of encouragement. Something. Nothing. I stared at her. "Christina?" Finally, she looked up. "What?" I forced a smile. "I just told you I might be in serious financial trouble. You don't have anything to say about that." She sighed, setting her phone down. "Adam, you always figure these things out. What do you want me to say?" I blinked. That was it. I had expected concern, maybe even anger. But this was something else. A strange feeling settled in my chest. I didn't know it yet. But this was only the beginning. I don't know when Christina started hiding things from me, but lately, it was impossible to ignore. It started with her phone. Before, she'd use it openly. Now, she tilted the screen away whenever I walked in. At night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear the soft taps of her fingers typing. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I turned over just enough to see her face, lit by the glow of her screen. She was smiling. Not just a small grin, a real, amused smile. A smile I hadn't seen in a long time. The second she noticed me stir, she locked her phone and turned away. That was the first time I felt it, that deep, gut-wrenching feeling that something was really, really wrong. Jake came home that weekend. "Is Mom home?" he asked, dropping his bag by the door. "She had a meeting," I said. Later that night, we sat in the living room, but Jake wasn't watching the game. He kept glancing at his phone, tapping his fingers against his leg. Finally, he sighed. Is everything okay with Mom? That question again. I exhaled. Why do you ask? She's just different. He hesitated. She barely answers my texts, and when she does, it's like I'm bothering her. I clench my jaw. Yeah, I've noticed. Neither of us said it out loud, but we were both thinking it. What changed? The next morning, I met up with Mark. Mark had been my best friend for years. We built our businesses side by side, and I trusted him more than anyone. Which is why, when he offered me a deal that could save my company, I should have felt relieved. Instead, something felt off. We have an investor looking for a solid business to back, he said, leaning forward. They're willing to put in a lot of money. I narrowed my eyes. Why my company? Mark smirked. They like the numbers. On paper, it sounded perfect. So, why did it feel so wrong? I need to meet them first, I said. A pause. Barely noticeable, but it was there. Then Mark nodded. Of course. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like I had just stepped into something I didn't fully understand. That night, Christina came home late. I was already sitting in the living room, nursing a drink. She set her purse on the counter without a word. You're out late, I said casually. At a meeting? Another meeting. I watched as she pulled off her heels, rubbing her neck. A normal husband would have offered a massage. A normal husband wouldn't have this gnawing suspicion that his wife was lying to him. Instead, I just nodded. Everything go okay? Fine. She walked past me, heading upstairs without another word. And just like that, I realized something. We weren't just drifting apart. She was already gone. I thought things couldn't get any worse. I was wrong. Losing one major client was bad enough. Losing a second? That was a death sentence. The call came in the morning. My assistant looked pale when she handed me the phone. I already knew what was coming. Adam, we're pulling out of the contract, the voice on the other end said. I kept my tone calm. Mind if I ask why? A pause. Too long of a pause. It's just not the right fit anymore. Bullshit. Deals worth millions don't just fall apart because they're not the right fit. Something was happening behind the scenes, but I had no proof. When I hung up, I sat there, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. First, money disappearing, now this. Mark's perfectly timed offer from a mystery investor suddenly felt even more suspicious. I came home late that night, exhausted. Christina was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, her phone face down next to her. She barely looked up when I walked in. Rough day? She asked, voice flat. You could say that. I sat down across from her, rubbing my temples. Another client walked. Just like that. She blinked, took a sip of her wine. That's tough. I waited for more. Some kind of concern. A question. Anything. Nothing. Instead, she picked up her phone and turned away slightly as she checked something, hiding the screen from me. Again. Then, casually, she said, I need more money for the foundation this month. I looked up. How much? She told me the number. It was huge. More than double what she had asked for before. Christina, I said slowly, where exactly is this money going? Her eyes flashed. Why are you questioning me? I'm not questioning you. I sighed, rubbing my face. It's a lot of money, and right now, I don't have a lot to spare. She scoffed. You always figure it out. I stared at her. That was the second time she'd said that. Before I could respond, she grabbed her phone and stood up. I'm taking a bath. And just like that, the conversation was over. That night, something woke me up. The bed shifted. The sound of fabric rustling. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see Christina slipping out of bed. She grabbed her phone off the nightstand and crept out of the room. I glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. My stomach twisted. I waited a minute, then got up, moving as quietly as I could. I followed the faint glow of light coming from downstairs. When I reached the hallway, I saw her, standing near the front door, fully dressed, whispering into her phone. I couldn't make out the words, but her tone was urgent, nervous. Then, she grabbed her purse and slipped outside. I moved fast, reaching the window just in time to see her get into a car. A black car. Not hers. My chest tightened. She wasn't just hiding something. She was actively sneaking out in the middle of the night. I stood there, heart pounding, watching the taillights fade into the darkness. I could no longer lie to myself. Something was very, very wrong. I wasn't expecting a visitor that morning. I was sitting in my office, buried under financial reports, trying to figure out how the hell my company was bleeding out so fast, when my assistant knocked on the door. "There's someone here to see you," she said, looking unsure. "He says his name is Lorenzo. Claims it's important." The name didn't ring a bell. But when the man walked in, he looked at me like he knew exactly who I was. Lorenzo was in his 60s, tall, well-dressed, but with the sharp eyes of someone who had seen things most people hadn't. He didn't waste time. "You don't know me, but I know your wife," he said, lowering himself into the chair across from me. "We used to do business together." I sat up straighter. "What kind of business?" He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Let's just say I learned the hard way that Christina isn't who she pretends to be." Something about the way he said it sent a cold ripple down my spine. "You should keep a close eye on your money, Adam," he continued. "And your wife." I clenched my jaw. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that people don't change. And if Christina's acting different, there's a reason for it." That was all he gave me. No details, no accusations. Just a warning before he got up and walked out like he had never been there. But his words stuck with me. That night, I confronted Christina. I waited until we were alone in the kitchen, the hum of the dishwasher filling the silence between us. "You ever heard of a guy named Lorenzo?" I asked casually, pouring myself a drink. I barely had time to take a sip before her expression completely changed. Her whole body tensed. "Where did you hear that name?" I raised an eyebrow. "So you do know him?" She let out a short, forced laugh. "What? Did he come here spinning some ridiculous story?" "He's a liar, Adam. A bitter old man with a grudge. He told me to keep an eye on my money. And on you." Her face flashed with anger. "And you believed him?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." She slammed the dishwasher shut harder than necessary. "I can't believe this. You actually think I'd..." She shook her head and grabbed her wine glass. "You know what? I don't have to explain myself to you." She stormed off before I could push her further, which meant Lorenzo had hit a nerve. Later that night, I went to grab something from Christina's car. She had asked me to bring in a box she left in the trunk. The second I opened the door, I smelled it. Cologne. Expensive. And definitely not mine. I froze. It was faint, but unmistakable. The scent clung to the leather, the air inside the car heavy with it. I stood there, gripping the edge of the door, my pulse hammering in my ears. The logical part of my brain tried to explain it away. Maybe she gave someone a ride. Maybe it was from a meeting. Maybe. No. I wasn't an idiot. Lorenzo's words echoed in my head. People don't change. If she's acting different, there's a reason. I closed the trunk, took a deep breath, and walked back inside. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. And there was only one way this was going to end. I wasn't expecting to hear it like this. The night started out normal, just a small gathering at our house. Jake had invited a few friends over, and I stuck around, nursing a drink while they talked and laughed. It felt good, for once, to pretend everything was fine. And then Lucas said it. I wasn't even paying attention at first. The conversation had drifted, and Lucas, Jake's closest friend, a kid I had known since they were in middle school, was casually rambling about some fancy restaurant he went to last week. "Yeah, and I swear, I saw your mom there," he said, laughing. "Didn't want to interrupt her date, though." The room went silent. Jake frowned. "What?" Lucas, completely oblivious, kept talking. "She was with some guy. Thought it was your dad at first, but nah. Different dude. Older, well-dressed. They looked, I don't know, close." My stomach dropped. Jake let out a forced laugh. "Man, you're messing with me." Lucas blinked, realizing he might have said something wrong. "No, dude, I swear. I figured it was like a work thing or whatever." He scratched the back of his head. "Was kinda late, though." Jake glanced at me. I forced a casual chuckle, even though my hands had gone cold. "Yeah, your mom has a lot of charity meetings," I said, my voice unnaturally steady. "Probably just business." I took a sip of my drink, acting like it didn't matter. Like I wasn't suddenly barely breathing. I didn't say another word for the rest of the night. When everyone was gone and Jake went upstairs, I went straight to my office. I had ignored the red flags for too long. Now, I needed proof. I logged into our joint account and started going through transactions. Christina had always handled most of the household expenses, so I hadn't paid close attention before. But now I saw the pattern. Every couple of weeks, large sums were being transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Tens of thousands. Always just after she had asked me for money. I clenched my jaw, scrolling back months. The payments had been happening for a long time. A very long time. I leaned back in my chair, my heart hammering. Was she paying someone off? Hiding money? Funding a whole separate life behind my back? A part of me wanted to believe there was some logical explanation. The rest of me knew better. I made up my mind that night. No more wondering. No more guessing. The next time she said she had a late meeting, I was following her, and I had a feeling I wasn't going to like what I found. I told myself I needed proof. That's how I justified it. That's how I convinced myself to follow her. When Christina left that evening, dressed a little too well for a charity dinner, I waited exactly 5 minutes before grabbing my keys and heading out. I kept my distance, careful not to get too close. She drove across town, past the restaurants and bars, past places where you'd expect a charity event to be held. And then she pulled into a hotel parking lot. My stomach dropped. I parked on the opposite side of the lot and watched as she got out of the car, adjusting her dress, checking her reflection in the window. She looked excited, nervous. Then she walked inside. Less than a minute later, another car pulled up. Mark. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. It wasn't just some random guy. It was my best friend, my business partner. I already knew, but knowing and seeing are two different things. I got out of the car and followed them inside. I didn't rush. I needed to be smart. If they saw me, I wouldn't get the answers I needed. The hotel lobby was quiet, dimly lit. Christina and Mark were already at the front desk. She leaned into him, laughing softly as he took the keycard. My chest burned. I waited until they stepped into the elevator before heading to the front desk myself. The clerk barely looked up. Checking in? No, I said. I just saw my wife go upstairs. She forgot her room number. Can you remind me? I expected a refusal, a policy about guest privacy. Instead, the clerk just sighed, like this wasn't the first time some idiot husband came looking for his cheating wife. Room 917. I nodded and walked toward the elevator. By the time I reached the 9th floor, my hands were shaking. I found the door. 917. I could hear them inside, laughing, kissing, the bed creaking. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly, trying to stop the rage clawing at my insides. Then I heard Christina's voice, clear as day. If he doesn't sign the papers, we'll have to get rid of him. Mark chuckled. You think he'll resist? He's stubborn. But once he realizes he's lost everything, he'll give in. A pause. Then, softer, sweeter. And if not, accidents happen all the time. I stumbled back before I even realized I was moving. My vision blurred. My ears rang. They weren't just cheating. They were planning to destroy me, to take everything I had. And if I fought back, they were going to kill me. I turned and walked away, forcing myself to stay calm, to keep my steps steady. I didn't know what my next move was. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. I drove home in a daze, my hands still shaking on the wheel. The words kept echoing in my head. Accidents happen all the time. My wife, the woman I'd spent 20 years with, built a life with, raised a son with, was plotting my death. And Mark, my best friend, my business partner, he was right there with her, laughing about it like it was nothing. I pulled into our driveway and just sat there, engine off, staring at the house we called home for 15 years. Every window, every brick, every memory now felt tainted. My phone buzzed. Jake, Dad, you okay? You didn't answer my texts. I cleared my throat. Yes, son. Just busy with work. A pause. You sure? You've been acting weird lately. How do you tell your son that his mother is planning to kill his father? That the woman who raised him, who tucked him in at night and kissed his scraped knees, was capable of such cold-blooded betrayal? I'm fine, I lied. Just dealing with some business issues. When I hung up, I sat there longer, thinking. They had me cornered. The missing money, the lost clients, Mark's mysterious investor. It all made sense now. They were systematically destroying everything I'd built, piece by piece. And if I fought back, well, they had a plan for that too. I needed to be smart. Smarter than them. That's when the idea hit me. I pulled out my phone and texted Christina, "Missing you. Let's have dinner tomorrow night. Invite Mark too. We should discuss that investment offer." Her response came quickly. "Sounds perfect. I'll tell him." Of course she would. They probably thought their plan was working perfectly. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. If they wanted to play games, fine. But they weren't the only ones who could set a trap. I spent the next day preparing. I gathered every piece of evidence I had: bank statements, recorded conversations, photos. I even hired a private investigator to dig deeper into their connection. What he found made me sick. The charity foundation Christina ran? A front. The missing money? They'd been siphoning it off for years, preparing for this moment. And Mark's company? Built with money he'd stolen from mine. By the time evening came, I was ready. I set the dining room table carefully. 3 places. Wine glasses. Perfect for a final confrontation. Jake had texted earlier, asking if he could join us for dinner. I almost said no, wanted to protect him from what was about to happen. But maybe he needed to see the truth for himself. "Sure, son," I replied. "Come over at 7. I placed a small voice recorder under the table. Another in my pocket. The folder with all the evidence sat in my office, ready. Christina came home first, dressed up like this was just another dinner party. She kissed my cheek, and I had to fight not to flinch. "Mark's running a bit late," she said, pouring herself some wine. "But he'll be here soon." I watched her move around the kitchen, so comfortable in her lies. How many times had she kissed me, smiled at me, all while plotting my destruction? Jake arrived next, giving his mother a hug that made my heart ache. He still didn't know. Still saw her as mom, not the monster she'd become. The doorbell rang. Mark stood there, bottle of wine in hand, wearing that same fake smile he'd worn for years. "Adam, good to see you, buddy." I let him hug me, pat my back like old times. Let him think everything was normal. We all sat down to dinner, the perfect picture of friends and family. Christina raised her glass. To good friends and new opportunities. I raised mine too, meeting her eyes across the table. "Yes," I said quietly. "To revealing opportunities." The trap was set. Now it was time to watch it snap shut. I've been trying to figure out how to handle this situation for days. Tonight, I finally decided to confront them. Looking back now from my hospital bed, I'm still not sure if it was the smartest move, but at least now everyone knows the truth. I invited them both to dinner. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, inviting your cheating wife and backstabbing best friend over for pasta. But I needed my son Jake to see who they really were. He deserved to know the truth about his mother. Christina showed up first, all dressed up and smiling. The way she kissed my cheek and acted normal made my stomach turn. Jake arrived next, hugging his mom like he always does. Watching that moment just about broke my heart. Then Mark showed up with his fake smile and a bottle of wine. "Hey, buddy." Like we're still best friends. Like he hasn't been sleeping with my wife and stealing my money for the past 2 years. Dinner started normally enough. Christina kept touching Mark's arm when she thought I wasn't looking. They shared these little glances that now seemed so obvious. I kept thinking about how blind I'd been all this time. I waited until everyone had eaten. Then I pulled out my phone and played the hotel recording. The one where they're casually discussing my murder over pillow talk. The silence that followed was deafening. Christina went white as a sheet. Mark froze mid-bite. Jake just sat there, fork suspended in the air, looking between them like he was waiting for someone to say it was all a joke. Christina tried damage control immediately. "Adam, you're taking this completely out of context." "Right, because there's a proper context for planning your husband's murder." That's when I laid out everything. Bank statements showing millions missing. Photos of their meetups. Evidence that her charity was laundering money. Proof that Mark's company was built with cash stolen from mine. Everything spread out on the dinner table between the wine glasses and pasta. Jake stood up so fast his chair fell over. The look he gave his mom, I'll never forget it. Pure betrayal. Christina tried to reach for him, but he backed away like she was poisonous. Here's where everything went sideways. Mark suddenly pulls out a knife. Not a dinner knife, a proper hunting knife. My best friend came to dinner armed and ready for violence. He lunged across the table at me. I managed to dodge but caught a slice on my arm. That's 12 stitches I didn't plan on getting tonight. Jake, and I've never been prouder of my son, tackled him straight into our china cabinet. Glass went everywhere. Christina was screaming, but not because she was worried about me. No, she was yelling at Mark for ruining the plan. I'm sitting in the hospital now, getting stitched up, and I can't help but think about all those years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every family vacation, was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a convenient mark for their long con? Jake's okay, thank God. A few cuts from the glass, but nothing serious. He hasn't said much since it happened. Just sits here in the hospital room, staring at his phone, probably trying to make sense of it all, just like I am. The police are involved now. They have to be. When your wife and best friend graduate from affair and embezzlement to attempted murder over dinner, there's no going back to normal. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes it tries to stab you over pasta. But at least it's the truth. The next few hours after the dinner felt like a blur. The emergency room doctors kept asking me to explain what happened while they stitched up my arm. How do you tell someone that your wife of 20 years and your best friend just tried to kill you over pasta? The police took statements from all of us separately. Christina was crying the whole time, telling them I was unstable, that I had misunderstood everything, that the recording was taken out of context. The officers just kept nodding and taking notes while she spun her lies. Mark was a different story. The moment Jake tackled him, something in him snapped. The mask completely fell off. He started ranting about how I didn't deserve what I had, how he and Christina had been planning this for years. The cops didn't even have to push him. He just kept talking, confessing to everything. The detective pulled me aside after taking Mark's statement. "You're lucky," he said. "Most people don't survive when their spouse plans something like this." He showed me photos of Mark's car. They found another knife, rope, and a tarp in his trunk. This wasn't just a spontaneous attack. They had a backup plan ready. Christina kept trying to talk to Jake, but he wouldn't even look at her. "How could you do this to Dad?" He finally exploded. "Were you really going to kill him? Your own husband? My father?" She started with the waterworks again, saying she never meant for any of this to happen, that Mark had manipulated her. But Jake wasn't buying it. Neither was I. The recordings were clear. She had been just as involved in planning my accident as Mark was. The way she talked about it so casually over pillow talk with him still makes my skin crawl. The police found more evidence at their secret apartment. Yeah, they had a whole apartment I never knew about. Years of documents showing how they'd been stealing from my company. Plans for what they would do after I was gone. They even had a draft of my suicide note. Can you believe that? They were going to make it look like I killed myself after discovering the company was bankrupt. The scary part? Their plan might have worked if I hadn't caught them at the hotel. They had thought of everything. The fake charity, the shell companies, the gradual destruction of my business. They were going to wait until I was at my lowest point before staging my suicide. Christina got released on bail. Her parents put up their house as collateral. Mark wasn't so lucky. With the weapons in his car and his confession at the scene, they're holding him without bail. My lawyer says he's looking at serious time. But this isn't over. Christina's still out there, and she's desperate now. She keeps trying to call me, leaving messages about how she can explain everything. Yesterday, she showed up at my office, causing such a scene that security had to remove her. She was screaming that she still loves me, that we can fix this. Fix this? How do you fix finding out that the mother of your child was planning your murder? The restraining order goes into effect tomorrow. My lawyer says we have a solid case against both of them. Attempted murder, conspiracy, grand theft, fraud. The list keeps growing as they uncover more evidence. Jake's staying with me now. Neither of us sleeps much. Every noise makes us jump, wondering if Christina or one of Mark's friends might try something. The police say we're being paranoid, but they didn't hear them planning my death like it was a grocery list. I keep thinking about something the detective said. The most dangerous time is when they realize they've lost everything. Well, they've lost everything now, and I can't help but wonder what they might try next. 3 months have passed since that dinner night. Sometimes I still wake up in cold sweat, remembering the glint of Mark's knife. But things are finally starting to make sense, and justice is coming. The trial started last week. The evidence against them is overwhelming. Those recordings I made at the hotel turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg. The forensic accountants found everything. Every stolen dollar, every fake transaction, every shell company they created. Mark broke first. His lawyer knew they had no chance with the attempted murder charge, not with a room full of witnesses and a trunk full of evidence. He took a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Christina in exchange for a lighter sentence. Some best friend, right? Christina didn't take that well. She showed up at my house one night, completely drunk, screaming about how I ruined everything. How we could have had a perfect life if I'd just been stupid enough to sign those papers, or better yet, just died like I was supposed to. Jake recorded the whole thing. My son, always thinking ahead. That video of her confession pretty much sealed her fate in court. Her fancy lawyer quit the next day. Even he couldn't spin a story around her screaming about how I should have died. The financial damage is bad, I won't lie. They managed to steal almost $4 million through Christina's fake charity alone. The company's reputation took a hit, but surprisingly, most of our clients stuck with us. Turns out having your wife try to kill you generates a lot of sympathy in the business world. Lorenzo, remember him? The guy who tried to warn me? He came to testify too. Turns out Christina and Mark had pulled something similar with his company years ago. They didn't try to kill him, but they stole enough to nearly bankrupt him. He'd been tracking them ever since, waiting for them to slip up. The prosecutors say Mark's looking at 15 years minimum. Christina's trial is still ongoing, but with the evidence they have, she'll probably get at least 10. Her parents finally stopped defending her after they heard the recordings. Hard to justify your daughter planning her husband's murder over pillow talk with his best friend. Jake's doing better now. He's back at college, trying to move on with his life. We talk every day. Sometimes about what happened, sometimes about nothing at all. The therapist says we're both handling it as well as anyone could. I'm selling the house. Too many memories, too many ghosts. Found a smaller place closer to Jake's school. It's time for a fresh start. The divorce was finalized yesterday. 20 years of marriage ended with the stroke of a pen. The judge took one look at the evidence, and Christina got nothing. Not a penny. Her lawyer tried to argue that she deserved half the company's value. The judge asked if that included the money she stole. That shut them up pretty quick. You know what's funny? I actually feel sorry for them. Not because of the jail time. They deserve every second of that. But imagine living your whole life so focused on money and greed that you try to kill someone who loved you. What a hollow way to exist. I'm not the same naive guy I was 3 months ago. The man who trusted blindly and loved completely, he died that night at the dinner table. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what's really important. The company's recovering. I'm recovering. Life goes on, just with better locks on my doors and a much better security system.